The silence in the car was a physical presence, thick and heavy, broken only by the frantic runaway rhythm of my own heart. It hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird beating itself to death against a cage of bone and betrayal. The steering wheel was slick under my icy palms, yet I couldn't seem to let go. Letting go would mean falling apart, and I couldn't afford to shatter. Not yet. Not here, in this dimly lit street across from the jewelry store that had just become the monument to my life's destruction. I replayed the scene on a loop behind my eyes. A horrifying film strip I was powerless to stop. The way he had leaned in, the casual intimacy of his hand on the small of her back. Her laugh, tinkling and light, a sound that would now forever be the soundtrack to my nightmare. The way the city lights had caught the facets of that diamond, scattering tiny, cruel rainbows. It was so much more than a kiss. It was a performance, a declaration, and I had been the sole unwitting audience member. How long had it been going on? A month? 6? The receipt was from last week, but the ease between them, the familiarity. That didn't happen overnight. My mind, now a treacherous ally, began combing through the archives of the last year. The team-building weekend in Napa, the client dinner on my birthday, the sudden interest in a new fitness regime that required late-night gym sessions. Each memory, once a neutral building block of our shared life, now glowed with the sickly radioactive light of suspicion. The foundation of our 5 years together wasn't just cracked. It had been rotten all along, and I had been happily decorating the walls, oblivious to the termites feasting within. A wave of nausea, hot and acidic, rose in my throat. I rolled down the window, gulping in the cold night air, trying to steady the spinning world. The urge to scream, to sob, to ram my car into the driver's side of his precious sedan was a primal screaming thing in the core of my being. But I swallowed it down. I forced it into a dark, locked box in the deepest part of my soul. I couldn't give him the satisfaction of my breakdown. He didn't deserve my tears. He deserved my wrath, but a wrath that was cold, precise, and utterly devastating. I had to get home before he did. The thought was a lifeline, a single concrete action in a sea of emotional chaos. I started the car, my movements robotic. The drive was a blur of stoplights and neon signs. My body operating on an autopilot my mind could no longer manage. I kept seeing her face, young, pretty, unburdened. Was she his assistant? A client? What lies had he told her about me? That I was a nag? That we were separated? That I didn't understand him? The questions were a swarm of bees in my head, their buzzing a constant, maddening hum. Pulling into our driveway, my driveway, a voice in my head viciously corrected, felt like arriving at a crime scene. Our little Victorian house with its charming porch and my wilting potted geraniums looked like a stage prop, a fake pretty shell hiding a festering truth. I walked inside, the familiar creak of the floorboards now sounding like accusations. The house smelled of the lavender candle I'd lit earlier and the faint, lingering scent of his cologne. His new cologne, the one I'd never bought for him. I moved through the rooms on shaky legs. The living room where we'd cuddled on the couch watching movies. The kitchen, where he'd taught me how to make his mother's pasta sauce. Our bedroom. I stopped at the doorway, my hand gripping the frame. This was the epicenter. This was where I had found the receipt. This was where he had kissed me goodbye this morning, his lips a lie. The bed was unmade, the pillow still holding the indentations of our heads from the night before. The intimacy of it felt like a violation. In the bathroom, I faced my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back was a stranger. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and shock-bright. There were no tears, not yet. Just a hollow, terrifying stillness. This was the face of the woman before, the woman who believed in happily ever after. She was gone. I splashed cold water on my face, the shock of it a welcome anchor to reality. I practiced a smile in the mirror. It was a ghastly, grimacing thing. I tried again, softer. I thought of the day he proposed, the sheer, unadulterated joy on his face. I channeled that memory, forcing the light back into my eyes, the genuine curve onto my lips. It was the most difficult performance of my life. I heard his key in the lock. My heart, which had settled into a dull, painful thud, immediately skyrocketed again. I took a deep, shuddering breath, holding the image of the smiling, trusting Elena in my mind. You know nothing. You are happy. He worked late. Hey, baby, he called out, his voice dripping with a false, weary warmth. The sound of it, once a comfort, now made my skin crawl. I walked out of the bathroom, making sure my movements were loose and easy. "In here," I said, my voice miraculously steady. "How was the budget meeting?" "You must be exhausted." He came into the bedroom, loosening his tie. He looked tired, but it was a satisfied tiredness. The tiredness of a man who has just sealed a deal in more ways than one. He came over and wrapped his arms around me, burying his face in my hair. I forced my body not to stiffen, to melt into the embrace. I breathed in, and there it was, the new cologne mixed with the faint, sweet trace of a perfume that wasn't mine. It was brutal, he sighed, his breath warm against my neck. But productive. We finally got the Henderson account secured. It's going to mean a big bonus, the audacity. He was already weaving the financial justification for his new life, laying the groundwork for the money that would soon be funneled away. He was narrating our future, and his narration was a complete work of fiction. "I'm so proud of you," I murmured into his shoulder, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I pulled back and looked up at him, my practiced smile firmly in place. "You work so hard for us, for our future." He looked down at me, and for a fleeting second I saw it, a flicker of something in his eyes. Not guilt, not quite. It was more complicated. A shadow of pity, perhaps, mixed with a profound, unshakable arrogance. He saw my devotion, my blind trust, and it only reinforced his sense of superiority. He believed he was so much smarter, so much more cunning. That flicker was all the confirmation I needed. This wasn't a man who had made a mistake. This was a man who was executing a plan. He kissed my forehead. "It'll all be worth it soon, I promise. Everything I do is for us." And in that moment, the last fragile thread of hope I didn't even know I was clinging to snapped. The love I had felt for him didn't just die. It underwent a violent chemical change. It transmuted into a new, pure element, a resolve as hard and sharp as diamond. The grieving artist was gone. The strategist had taken her place. The game was indeed on, and I was a very, very fast learner. The next morning I began my work. The us was gone. It was me and him was the enemy. My studio, once a sanctuary of creativity, became my war room. Canvases were pushed aside, replaced by notepads, my laptop, and a cold, focused determination. I started with what I knew. The password, Diamond 23. The sheer, unadulterated gall of it was a potent fuel. It was a tribute to his new woman, a permanent monument to his betrayal and the key to his undoing, all in one. But I didn't log in immediately. A reckless move could alert him. Instead, I observed. I noted that he always left his laptop on the kitchen counter while he made his morning coffee, his back to the room. A 30-second window. I learned that he took his phone into the shower, leaving it on the sink, the screen vulnerable to a quick, curious glance. I became a student of his habits, his patterns, his arrogance. My first foray into his digital life was on a Tuesday, his early morning at the firm. The house was quiet. I opened his laptop, the login screen glowing in the pre-dawn light. My fingers trembled as I typed Diamond 23. The screen unlocked, revealing his desktop, a generic stock photo of a mountain range. Impersonal. Hiding. I went straight for his email. I didn't bother with the inbox. That would be too obvious. I searched for folders. Tax Docs 2023, it was a brilliant, boring hiding place. Inside, my blood ran cold. It wasn't just a few flirtatious emails. It was a paper trail of a second life, a lease agreement for a sleek, modern apartment in a new development across town. The lessee, Daniel Cressmont and Chloe Miller. The start date was 11 months ago. 11 months. He had been living a double life for almost a year. The emails to the realtor were filled with excitement. "Can't wait to get the keys. Chloe is so excited about the view." They were building a home. I found the credit card statements he had meticulously hidden in a separate, password-protected PDF I accessed by guessing his mother's maiden name. Charges for furniture, for dinners at expensive restaurants we never went to, for weekend getaways to cozy inns. The financial footprint of his affair was staggering. He wasn't just cheating. He was investing. But the true soul-crushing blow was yet to come. The empire. With my hands now steady, my emotions locked in a deep freeze, I began my forensic accounting. I called our main bank, my heart in my throat. Using the information I'd gathered, his social security number, his mother's maiden name, the account numbers from the statements I'd found, I pretended to be him, deepening my voice just slightly, adopting his confident, slightly impatient tone. "I just need to verify the current balances on my joint accounts," I said. my voice barely a whisper. The representative, a pleasant-sounding woman, read them out. Our joint savings, the nest egg for our future children, for the beach house for our dreams. 4/12 and 18. I felt the floor drop out from under me. We had deposited a $5,000 check from my last major gallery sale just 3 months prior. It was gone. The joint checking account was overdrawn. Then she mentioned the line of credit. A home equity line of credit was opened 6 months ago, she said cheerfully. The current balance is $49,850 of the $50,000 limit. I couldn't breathe. He had taken a loan out against our house. My house, the house my art had paid the down payment on. And my business account I managed to choke out, giving her the number for my gallery's account, the one he had helped me set up, under Reed Studios. The balance is $1,205.67, she said. It should have had at least $20,000. He had been siphoning it off, month by month, transfer by transfer, likely labeling it as business expenses or tax payments. He was funding his new life. His apartment with Chloe, his diamond necklaces, with my labor, with our shared assets, with the very roof over my head. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the desk. The rage returned, but it was different now. It wasn't a fire. It was a laser, focused, incredibly hot, and capable of cutting through steel. He hadn't just broken my heart. He had attempted to erase me, to financially smother me, leave me drowning in debt, and walk away clean into the sunset with Chloe. He was planning to leave me with nothing. Literally nothing. I began printing everything. The emails, the lease, the bank statements. The printer whirred and hummed, spitting out page after page of his treason. Each sheet was a testament to his cruelty, a piece of my armor. I compiled it all on a cheap encrypted flash drive I bought with cash. This was my arsenal. As I held the growing stack of paper, I felt the weight of it in my hands. This was no longer about the other woman. This was about survival. A simple emotional confrontation was off the table. He would deny it. He would gaslight me. He would call me hysterical and drain the last remaining pennies before I could stop him. No. He had operated in the shadows, using secrecy and manipulation as his weapons. I would do the same. But my goal was not to build a secret life. My goal was to systematically dismantle his. He had left me with nothing, and so I would return the favor. The blueprint for his ruin began to take shape in my mind, not as a sketch but as a fully realized architectural drawing. It would be a 3-phase operation: the illusion, the trap, and the collapse. And I would ensure that when the dust settled, the name Daniel Crestmont would be synonymous with ruin, and I would be standing, not in the ashes, but on the foundation of a new, unshakable future, built entirely by me.